Welcome back to the C-Suite Mama podcast. I'm your host, Shay Campbell. Thank you so much for joining me here today for episode 10. Super excited. As you can see here today, we have a special guest, and I'm excited for this conversation today. We have Miss Yvonne Dubois here, the C-Suite Mama. She is Chief Equity and Inclusion Officer at Child and Family Services. She is a mom of one, and I'm so excited to talk to her. I'm going to let her tell all the stories and everything about her background and mom life. So let's jump right in. Thank you
Yeah.
for being here.
Thank you for having me. This is how you know you made it. If
Oh,
Shay
gosh.
Campbell is asking you to do something, yeah, you did it. You did something with your life.
Well, thank you so much for that. And I count it an honor to talk to so many incredible women um on the podcast. Just amazing background, so accomplished. It's really a privilege and honor for me to sit and talk with you. So I'm excited. Let's jump in. As I said, you're the Chief Equity and Inclusion Officer at Child and Family Services. For those who, number one, don't know what's Child and Family Services, what is an Equity and Inclusion Officer, and then tell us how you got there.
Yes. Okay. So, first of all, the most important thing to know about Child and Family Services is that we are not CPS. We just did the Pride Parade yesterday, and a part of our chant was, "Hey, we're not CPS." Like,
I love that.
don't get us misconstrued. And no shade to any state agencies, but we are an organization dedicated to family reunification, family preservation, and we have a host of programs across the spectrum of life from birth to death that help to assist people to just live healthier lives in our community. So there are a bunch of different ways that we do that, from youth services, counseling, and family preservation services, on to employee assistance programming. And we have a community dispute resolution center that helps keep people out of the court system. So there are a ton of interesting things that we do. I would encourage you to go to our website at cfsbny.org and check out our services, because there's probably something you could use.
Yes.
And you know that because you made headway as the equity and inclusion chief equity and inclusion officer at Child and Family Services. So literally blazed the trail for me to sit in this
Oh.
space, and that's really, really important to say.
Well, thank you for that. It was a wonderful organization. It still is a wonderful organization. So I am grateful for that opportunity, and I could not have passed the baton to a more incredible person. So I'm so excited about the work you're doing. So tell us how did you end up in the seat? What was your journey to the C-suite?
Yes. So I'm a chief equity and inclusion officer. So I'm in the realm of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Some people call it JEDI, justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. Sometimes there's a B for belonging in there. But all of these terms really mean that there is a person in office dedicated to making sure that people feel welcomed, respected, and protected in their positions at work, because work is really the largest thing that it takes up so much space in our lives, right?
Yes.
So ensuring that people are showing up to a workspace every day where they are seen, where they are heard, where they're a part of important decisions that will shape their careers and ultimately shape their lives. Having someone dedicated to that is what I do. The other side of that coin is making sure that there are equitable outcomes for the folks who come and are served by our programs. So if we are doing a fantastic job of ensuring that children are discharged back to their families and are ready, to be in their homes in a way that's healthy and meaningful, and having good interactions with their families, but there's a certain subgroup that's not getting that, by race or by class or by gender or by sexuality or whatever the group is, then there's something amiss. And so part of my job is diving into data to ensure that no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, no matter what language you speak or what your background is or what your trauma history is, that you can benefit from services in the same way as other people from other
Yeah.
backgrounds throughout our city. So it really is the culmination of like my life's work as a social
Yeah.
worker, which feels so crazy to say because sometimes I feel like we are the grown-ups, we are the adults.
We are the aunties for sure. I have the privilege of knowing your background, but you have a really unique work history, a wide variety of experiences, which really position you perfectly for the work that you're doing at Child and Family. Can you talk about that a little bit and kind of take us back to the early days of your career
Yeah.
to now?
Yes, yes, yes. So I graduated from the UB School of Social Work back in 2009, which feels like the Stone Age at this point and also yesterday at the same time.
Right.
Um, and so I have a bachelor's degree in psychology, and that led me, I knew I always wanted to be a social worker. So it was just about what way being a social worker would show up in my life. So I got my master's degree in social work. I did some community work. I worked with the unhoused population and chronically homeless folks. I did some work with youth, just kind of like testing around to see, where my passion really sat. I ended up at ECMC, and that position really helped me land the position that helped open me up and help me understand what I really want to do, which is organizational development.
So,
So
for those who don't know, in Western New York, ECMC, Erie County Medical Center, is a large public health organization serving underserved communities primarily. It's a trauma hospital. So, I just wanted to clarify that for our international and national listeners as well.
national and yes.
Yes.
Yes. So it's it's a large healthcare system and it's
Mhm.
mostly serving Black and brown people and it's
Yep.
mostly serving our community, our folks.
Hmm.
Of underserved folks, right? And so I was positioned uniquely to move into a training role and really create the training department for staff through human resources. So, A, I was exposed to a lot of human resources work, and B, I was able to really lay the groundwork for what DEI work meant for me. I was
Hmm.
able to do some leadership development stuff. And that really, really struck a chord with me because I understood that you can do good work. You don't have to be in a direct caretaker role, right?
Yep.
To do good work in our community, that you can take care of caretakers. And that's what I discovered I really love and
Yeah.
I'm really passionate about to this day. So,
That is your gift. 100%. I had the opportunity to be on the receiving end of the caretaker, being taken care of by way of this leadership development opportunity during our ECMC days. And it was phenomenal. It was probably one of my favorite, definitely top three leadership development, professional development opportunities. It was absolutely incredible. And I even used some of those tools when I moved on to train, future leaders. So you are totally gifted there. I love
I
that.
feel the same way about you. Thank you. Thank
Oh,
you, Jay.
thank you.
Yeah, that's something, and it was actually that specific program, developing that program, executing that program, and then turning it over. And it still lives to this day. I'm so
Wow.
thankful to be able to have that impact. Of course, they've taken it, they've made it their own. It continues to evolve. But I then understood my role as someone who can make lasting impact in the lives of those who are caring for our community. And that's what
I love
led
that.
me to DEI work.
Okay.
George Floyd and everything that happened in 2020, was a powder keg for organizations, but that work has been simmering in any organization. If you're a Black person in any organization, you have felt the undercurrent for your entire life. So to see
Yes.
people wake up and be like, these are issues. This is a problem. These things are happening in my organization. It was like, yes, duh. Hello. Welcome. You have
Welcome.
arrived.
I love that. Your career journey it's been a joy to watch it evolve and grow. And I know you're adding so much value at your organization. Let's talk about the value that you are adding at home. You're the mom of one.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit, how are you managing parenting an exceptional child, a highly intelligent child, with this high profile career?
My baby boy, my butterbean. So he would be so embarrassed if I was like out here on a podcast calling him my baby boy and my butterbean. But he is my sweet boy EJ Edward. He is 9 years old. He's in the fourth grade at Olmsted, and first of all, I have not met a child that's not exceptional. I don't know any unexceptional children,
Yes,
and
that's
I'm
fair.
not. It's how we start out. We really are. I deeply believe in my spirit that people are born exceptional and then fall into patterns through lots of different means, often schooling that teaches you to like sit down and shut up
Hmm.
and like be quiet and learn and comply. And so much of my work in parenting, and this is continues to be a surprise to me, is helping my kid to remember that he is exceptional, in spite of whatever covert messaging is happening
Yeah.
around him. It really is keeping that spirit and that innocence alive.
Yeah.
He's such an easy going kid, that there are times that I can be, I think, as you know, a pretty intense personality, right? So it's easy for me to watch him move through the world and be like, oh, don't forget and do this and do that. Um, so it's striking this balance between, reminding him of just, how incredible he is as a human being, and that what a gift, you were born Black. What a
Yeah.
gift. Like, lean
Yeah.
into it. And then a part of it is like leaning back and letting him be, right? He
Yes.
is born whole already. And I'm ushering him, I'm stewarding him, right?
I
I'm not
love that.
creating him in any way. He is simply because he is. So
He is.
he
I
is
love that.
is a part of my philosophy in how I balance motherhood and work, because I am too, right?
Mm.
How parenting really gives you the opportunity to recognize all of the ways that you yourself need to be parented, not necessarily because any shortfalls from, my own parents and parenting. I recognize all the ways that my mom is a human being now
Hmm.
in my own parenting journey. But I'm also seeing the ways that, I need to continue to grow and evolve and be loved and feel, you know, that sense of that fearlessness that I want my
Yeah.
son to have, to move through the world of just like, you are so capable. That's my own. It's giving myself that too, right? Like,
Yeah.
um, don't try to falsely make yourself smaller than you are.
Mm. Mm.
So it's the push and the pull. Stay grounded, but think tall. Be big, but remain present. Um, and yeah, so that's behind a lot of my self-care philosophy and the way that I talk to myself. I try to
I love
keep it
that.
the way that I would talk to my child is the way I try to keep that internal voice.
I
And
love
that
that.
reminds me, are you feeling tired? Did you eat today? Did you drink water? Do you need a break? That parent voice is something I try to keep for me. And that's what keeps me aligned and in balance, so that I can be the mom who shows up for my kid, and be the person who shows up at work, and be the person who's showing up on all these volunteer things that I think I have all this time
Yeah.
for.
I just love that so much. It gave me goosebumps to think about, because we know that our own internal voice is often the voice of our caretakers. Um, but to reparent yourself in that way, I'm totally stealing those questions, because I know I handle my son with such care and tenderness too.
Yes.
But to approach myself that way, that is, love that. Love that. Love that. I know personally that your motherhood journey has not always been easy. You have certainly faced some serious challenges. And you, as much as you're willing to share, talk
Yeah.
about some of the most significant challenges that you faced, as a working mom and, as a mom in general, as a human, and how did you overcome those?
Yeah, yeah. This is actually one of my favorite topics to talk about, strangely, because it is such a huge part of my life and it impacts everything I do. And so I often will lead with this. People find that kind of strange, but I really want to normalize talking about this. So I am a solo mom, which is not a single mom. A solo parenting means that the other parent is not available. They are not alive for me to go to ask for any resources or whatever the case may be. And as a solo parent, it is really an entirely different journey as a widow to parent a child whose other parent is not alive. So I'm constantly assessing and looking for the ways and the gaps and the shortfalls and how I can fill those, and like who can stand in the stead of his father. So we lost EJ's dad, my husband, in 2018. He died by suicide. And so just really that's an everyday thing that we grapple with. And so we have really, really open conversations about mental health and what it means to care for yourself, and that you have to be the biggest and the most important person in your own life. And you really do have to be your own caretaker, right? You have to
Hmm.
just like we just talked about. We speak to our children, and I know this about you too, that we speak to our children with such a depth of love and respect and kindness. And we often forget to do that for ourselves. So,
Mm,
so much what I try to do for EJ is just to have really open, respectful, honest conversations about what it's like inside your mind. And
mm,
is your mind a safe space for you? Is your heart a safe space for you? Do you feel love when you retreat inside of yourself, as we all should? Or do you have difficulties? Do you have struggles? He's no stranger to the concept of a mental health day. And he probably overuses that a little bit. Sometimes on Monday mornings, it's like, ooh, mom, I think I need a mental health day. Do
So, and I love that our mental health days are probably a little more scheduled.
Yeah,
Actually, we
yeah,
have one on Friday, coming up.
yeah.
Um, but talk to me a little bit, and I'm going off script here.
Mhm.
I love this idea of you having a conversation with him about mental health and these whole ideas of what it's like to go inside your own mind and, being present and aware at 9. For moms out there who don't have the social work or mental health background, what does that look like? Or what tips can you give folks for just starting some of those conversations?
Yeah. So I think one of the most important things. Okay, so I'm about to cite a study. I'm about to nerd out a little bit.
Okay.
Um, so there is a study that recently came out about it. There was, first of all, we know there is like a huge children's mental health crisis happening in America right now, post COVID.
Hmm.
And there are a number of things that have gone into that. And this was bubbling before COVID. And I think COVID really just revealed to us all of the issues that our kids are dealing with. And so when they returned to the classrooms and we started testing them, we found throughout our country that children are struggling with their mental health, and they're struggling with how to talk about and understand their mental health. So there was a recent mental health study in children that came out. Um, Chantel, what do you think one of the greatest impacts to our children's mental health is? Like, what's most impacting their mental health? Just as a guess.
If I had to guess, it would be two different things. I mean, folks blame social media quite a bit, but I don't know if that is the go-to. I would say it probably has something to do with relationships and loneliness,
Yeah,
potentially.
Yes, 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 yes. So that is absolutely like in the top three.
Okay.
The number one thing though that most impacts children's mental health is the happiness of their primary caretaker, which is often the mother. Okay.
Wow.
A child's mental health is primarily impacted by the happiness of their mom,
Wow.
not whether or not there are two parents in the household. And hey, I'm like Black love. I'm an advocate for marriage and like whole families out here, and that's a wonderful thing to have. But that is not even at the top of the list of things that impact children's mental health, right? So the happiness of the primary caretaker, how you move through the world, your children watch it and they see.
Yeah.
And human beings we were born able to anticipate and understand our caretakers' needs wordlessly, intrinsically. You know this if
Hmm.
you grew up in a household full of trauma, your ability to sense people's emotions before they even say anything. There are some times when you could like hear your mom's steps walking upstairs to the back door, and it's like, yeah, it might not have been a good day today. Like, prepare, get
Hmm.
ready. Do you know what I
Hmm.
mean? So the first thing I would say to parents looking to have this conversation is to first get an understanding of like what you're feeling, what you're going through. It's a check in with yourself
Yeah.
first and understanding where you are mentally and emotionally, because this is a two-sided conversation. You can't teach without knowing, right? And you want your kids to have these tools so that they can reflect back to you, right?
Yeah.
So being able to know, to teach from a place of knowing is really vitally important. So if you need to do something for your mental health, like get counseling or like check in with a friend or like read some self-help books, do that.
Yeah.
Mental health is an ongoing thing that we sustain, like our physical health, right? So you exercise and you eat well. The checkup that you go to is just to see if you've been doing what you need to be doing. It's not
Yeah.
the whole picture of health to just
Yeah.
regularly visit the doctors or whatever. Mental health is the same way. You need to be regularly sustaining through exercise and through getting outside and eating well. That
Hmm.
physical health is a part of it, but it's also those regular conversations, it's those check-ins, it's understanding what your self-talk sounds like. Like, what
Hmm.
does the voice inside say to you when you make a mistake? What does the voice say to you inside when you're having a good day? Like, understanding and knowing yourself deeply is an important part of that conversation. But you don't have to know yourself 1,000% deeply to have a conversation about how are you feeling today on a scale of
Yeah.
1 to 10, right? What was the best thing that happened today? What was the hardest thing that happened today? That's a conversation I have with my son every single day when he gets home from school.
Yeah.
I
That's
love,
our regular question too.
yes,
What was the best part of your day?
yes.
What could have been done differently? Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes, yes.
Hmm.
And then if you do that enough, you think kids like maybe get tired of it or aren't listening. But if you do that often enough, they know that they're preparing to have these conversations with you. And then
Yeah.
eventually they're going to start gathering this data. Like, before I
Yep.
even ask the question, guess what happened today?
Yes.
Or,
Yes.
ooh, this was so hard today. I wish, right?
Yeah.
So having those regular check-in conversations, I think, is a key beginner component
I
to
love
the
that.
doorway about mental health.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
You mentioned as a part of mental health and mental wellness, I should say, checking in with friends.
Mhm.
Tell me a little bit about your support network and this career mom journey. The career mom journey specifically. What does your support look like, and how do they support you, and how can folks
Yeah.
go about kind of developing their circles of support?
Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so I mentioned earlier that grief and grieving has been a big part of my life. So when I've lost a number of people in a very short time, but dealing with the loss of my husband and the aftermath of that, you know, your community has a way of revealing itself in times of trial and tribulation, right? And under really challenging circumstance. And these two girls, women, incredible women, in their own right, are just like, they are the fundamental core of my unit. My two best friends, my gals, Jatan Hutchinson and Nicole Davis, who are also co-owners of Francie by Nicole Davis. Go cop those bags. Yes, exactly. Right, right. I got a little something. They do jewelry, they do handbags. They are just expanding. Watching them on their journeys have been incredible. Really just knowing how important it is to have a community of women, right? It's there's something about the relationship between women that is so fulfilling in a way that I don't even have language for. That really just helps me to keep going. I'm really honest with them. We're really honest with each other when we're going through difficulties. It might be we have our little group chat and we are regularly checking in with each other every day on a casual level, but it's also being really tuned in on a deeper level. When anniversaries come up, we're checking in with each other. How are you doing today? What's going on? What do you need? How do you
Mhm.
actually feel? Right? We use how are you doing as like a high and by. Um,
Yeah.
and so being in a space where we can check in with each other and really mean it and really be vulnerable and really like kind of act up and be
I
a mess.
love it.
I think one of the things about being a C-suite mama is that you feel like you have to always be on. You have to always, you can't break, right?
Yeah.
So being in a space with other women where you could break regularly and you get scooped right back up and you put on that face and you go out into the world and keep going has been fundamental to my well-being. We also
That's
travel
beautiful.
regularly together.
Yeah.
You know, I'm on this dating journey, and by God,
It will happen.
it
It will
will.
happen. I feel like I need
You know what? I'm so thankful for everything, but Lord, it's a
we
lot of
need a dating while in the C-suite conversation for sure.
Woo! Yeah,
But maybe we'll do a round table.
right. That's a whole separate podcast, so we won't get into it. Right, having that support from essentially my sisters, right,
Yeah.
in all of these separate journeys, and being able to be really, really honest with each other, I think has helped us to foster a level of honesty and accountability to each
Mm,
other. That has really helped us collectively to move forward
yeah.
through this life together.
That's beautiful. It's beautiful to watch your friendship too. You mentioned while being in the C-suite, this kind of need to always be on, so to speak.
Yeah.
Um, with that in mind or other challenges in mind, what key piece of advice would you have to offer to mothers aiming for leadership positions, kind of reflecting back on your career journey and where you are now?
Yeah.
What's your favorite tips?
So this is so interesting because I feel like I have been so many people on this career journey, but I have found the most success when I am my most authentic version of myself. And so I say that with some caveats, right? Because there's some privilege that comes with being your most authentic self at
Mhm.
work. A lot of the DEI work that's out now is like, can you show up as your whole self at work? And like, that being a measure of belonging. And the fact of the matter is, y'all don't want to see my whole self at work, right? Because sometimes that's a mess. There are some parts of myself that are just for me or just for my family or just for my son
Right.
or whatever, right? So
Right.
I don't really believe in necessarily the ability to show up 100% of the time as 100% of myself. Um,
Right.
there's some compartmentalization that has to happen. But I found that when I'm really living my values at work, is when I found the most success. And that's when I find it easy to, to talk, to have challenging conversations that I might otherwise shy away from, because I'm really like standing in these values, and
Mm.
I'm standing on business, right? With the things
Yeah.
I believe in, and the things that I want to push forward. And one of the things that I've discovered about myself in this career journey is I really have to work for an organization that I believe in, and that I truly believe in their work, because then not only is it easier for me to hold myself accountable, but it's easier for me to hold the organization to account, so that when
Hmm.
challenging conversations have to happen, I'm leaning on these values that I've prescribed to myself. And something that's been really a really helpful exercise that I use to this day is that I've written a personal mission statement. I have a personal mission, vision, and values that I rely on regularly. So when things happen at work, when I'm experiencing challenges in my business, um, I will go back to my mission and vision and values and say, does this align? And if it doesn't
Yeah.
align, what are the action steps that we need to take? And what does that look like for me? And if it does align, how do we make sure that this is happening?
I love
Um,
that.
yeah, so I would encourage anyone who's trying to make this journey to have your own personal mission, vision, and values that apply to your whole life, right?
That's
From my
beautiful.
parenting to my friendships to my relationships to my job. And make sure that you are living in your values and standing on business.
I
It,
love that so much. I
journey
love
in
that so much. My final question in this round, I want to talk about personal growth a little bit. I know you've had some personal challenges. Can you share a little bit about some professional setbacks that you've experienced and how that helped you grow?
My goodness, where do I even begin? So this I'm gonna try to keep this contained. So the first part of my journey early in my social work career, this is I'm kind of really before I discovered exactly where I wanted to land in my practice. I burned out really, really rapidly, right? Like within the first 2 years postgraduate school, I was
Mm.
just like, people is not where it's at. I don't know if this is the job for me. I had already spent all this money on my graduate degree, and I just was like, I'm not doing it no more. I literally enrolled in veterinarian school. So I went to vet
Wow.
school for a little bit, and then I was like, oh yeah, no. I'm not a
Did you
scientist.
want to take care of cats?
I wanted to take care of cats. You might see some cats walking around, right? I still want to take care of cats, right? But I can't do it as my job. If it
I
were
did not know that you enrolled in veterinarian school once upon a
like
time. That's hilarious.
did, yes. And I
I love
trained
it.
out, and then I was just like, oh, you know what? You know why this isn't a part of my journey? Because I'm not a mathematician. That's why I'm a social worker, right? So
Okay.
I, I was willing to try something different, and I was willing to fail.
Hmm.
And fail I did at vet school. God bless. Thank you very much, Damon. And then I went back to social work school. I'm sorry, I went back to social work.
Okay.
This is postgraduate school, and I found a survival job while I kind of figured out what my next move was. Um,
Okay.
and child and family services was a part of that story. I went back. I was an administrative assistant for a little while, trying to figure out, what my next steps were. So being willing to try something different to test this theory was really critical for me,
Yeah.
to understand where it is if, if I want to be where I actually say I want to be.
That's beautiful. I
Um,
love that.
yeah. It's one of my favorite fail stories. And it's something I talk to my son about regularly, because I want you to know that you don't have to have all the answers at any age.
Hmm.
And that you can test different paths. We are made to evolve, right?
Yes.
You don't have to stay in the same space, and allow yourself and other people to grow, right?
I
To
love
move
that.
into change.
That's
Yeah.
so awesome. Thank you. I love these
Ooh.
conversations because even though, the bulk of my guests I have known to some degree, either a lot or a little, but I always learn something new and fun. And so I love this Yvonne in vet school story. That is awesome. That's so great.
I'm a vet in my heart, okay? But
I love that.
like,
It's interestingly enough, I have a sister who is actually a veterinarian and is also interested in social work. So there has to be some kind of like mental alignment with the
the
two
social work
paths.
to vet to social work pipeline is strong. I can
Apparently,
feel it. We want to care for something. And
that
so
makes sense.
I've resolved that is to just have a ridiculous amount of pets. And that's enough
Okay.
for me. Yeah.
That makes sense. That makes sense. I love that. I said I was done with that first round, but there's one final question in that section that I want to ask. Looking forward, what are your aspirations for both your career, your professional life, your kiddo? Where are we going?
That's such a great question. I will be 40 this year, so I am literally assessing that for myself now. Um, I I don't know that I expected to achieve this position at this age in my life. It feels really quick. It's like, oh, like I turned around and was like, oh, it's happening. It's here,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, I think next what it looks like is to start again. And what I mean by that is to assess through trying a bunch of different things, like what the next evolutionary move looks like for me. So I'm on a number of boards as I kind of test what it looks like to grow and to change organizationally speaking. So I'm on
Yeah.
the board at the International Institute of Buffalo. On the board of directors at the City Swim Project, which is an incredible resource in our organization. If you need to teach a child how to swim, I encourage you to look them up. And I also just recently joined the board at No Wound Untreated, which is focused on providing trauma, education, care to folks, to everyone, but specifically looking at folks in our community who could benefit from trauma informed care and mental health care. Um, and so I'm trying to understand like, what are the ways that they can benefit from me? How can I benefit from them? I'm having new experiences and new conversations. I'm like moving out of my comfort zone
I love that for
a good
you.
bit as I assess exactly what that question looks like. For
That's beautiful.
my baby boy, my son who is going to fifth grade, um, I am focused on being the most present mom humanly possible. Fifth to ninth grade is where this is where the changes happen, you know?
Hmm.
Something happens to kids in the fifth grade and I'm trying to be right on top of it, right? So like 1
Yes.
to 5 and 9 to 14, those are the times where their brains and their bodies are changing so rapidly. So EJ gonna be sick of me, honey child. I'm gonna be in his face, like, what you doing? Where you at? Where you going? Who's this friend? Who's this? And what's
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm just trying to help him learn as much as he can and have as much fun as he can in these next 3 years, 3 to 5 years while he weathers these changes.
I love thank you for sharing
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Thank
This
you.
was a great conversation.
Thank
I hope that
you.
everyone
Yes.
well, good. Thank you. I trust that our listeners got tons of nuggets and gems to take with them today. Yes, I know I certainly did. And I have a lot to think about after this conversation. This was beautiful. We are going to transition into our lightning round. So these are the questions where you are not prepared ahead of time. And so I'm just going to ask them and you will give me the answer of whatever comes to your mind first.
Okay.
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 So, first question, morning routine. How do you start your day?
That first hour is immediately for me. I need
Okay.
silence. I need coffee. And I just need to hear whatever is happening. I'm listening to the
I love that.
birds or the rain or outside, whatever it is. That first hour is for me and it's grounding time.
I love that. Productivity hack. What's one tip that keeps you productive?
An egg timer. It's one of
Oh,
my favorite little things. So I am neurodivergent. I have ADD. And so one of my favorite little hacks is to make it, I gamify everything. And I do the same thing with my son and chores. We will set a timer for 10, 5, 10, 15, or 20 minutes. How much can we get done in the living room? Or how many emails can I send out? or how much can I get done from how many invoices can I send out, right? And do that for 20 minutes, take a break, come back, set the timer again. Before you know it, the tasks and the day are done.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. That's a great tip.
Yeah.
Go-to stress reliever. How do you unwind after a long day?
A walk outside. It is my favorite thing in the world. Get into any green space and take your shoes off. You might
Okay.
look a little banana pants while you're doing it, but getting into the sun, or even if the sun isn't shining, seeing a tree psychologically. There are studies on this. You can Google it. It does more to relieve your stress than like blood pressure and heart medications and all, or a drink or whatever it is that you do, you know, do those things, whatever it is. But if you can see a tree psychologically, it does more to relieve your blood pressure and your heart rate, than all of those other things combined.
I love that. A favorite book or podcast? What's been influential for you recently?
So I actually just finished Parable of the Sower. I've picked it up and put it down about a dozen times, and I went on a trip recently. I went on a trip to Costa Rica by myself. I went on a solo. I would recommend it for every working mother on the planet, even if you are in your city and you can go and get a hotel for 2 nights. Do it, do it. So I
Okay.
read Parable of the Sower in 24 hours. It was incredible. I've taken so many lessons from it. I love Octavia Butler. She's one of my favorite authors of all time. And yeah, it was really beautiful.
It's brilliant. I listened to Parable of the Sower and it was just incredible, and it kind of left you at the end like still at least myself, I was still thinking about the characters at the end of it all.
I'm absolutely still thinking about her, and now I'm starting Parable of the Talents. So I
Awesome.
would encourage you to go on to the next one and see what happens to her.
Good stuff. Hidden talent. What's something that people don't know you can do?
I am, and I. So I'm the ultimate karaoke person.
Oh
I'm
gosh.
not a good singer. I'm a terrible singer. Okay. Can't hold a note. But let me tell you, the energy that I bring to a
You
karaoke
bring the vibes.
situation is absolutely unmatched.
I
Yeah,
love it.
absolutely. I also make the best macaroni and cheese that you have ever tasted, guaranteed.
Get out of here.
Yes,
That's a hidden
that
talent.
is a fact.
Okay, I'm
Mhm.
looking for some this summer.
Yes,
Guil-
absolutely.
Guilty pleasure. What do you do to treat yourself?
So many things. Um, right now, so I got a subscription to a massage facial package, like a monthly package at Massage Envy, and getting a way to do that, and like maintaining that subscription has been just one of the loveliest things.
I love
Um,
that.
I also like to snack in bed.
That's okay.
Yeah,
Nothing wrong with a couple cookies every now and then in the bed.
that's right. Right at 10 p.m. Let me go get my ice cream and my Oreos. Absolutely.
I love it. Best piece of career advice that you've ever received?
To write a resume for my future self.
Ooh,
So
I love it.
it was like this mind blowing revelation. Write the resume that you envision at retirement and fill in the gaps, right?
Yeah,
And start to understand the ways that you need to move and who you need to be in order to make sure you have that resume.
that's amazing.
It is.
Okay, on your desk right now, what's one item that you always have?
My chapstick. Always
Okay.
have chapstick with me. I could say, I mean, I got notebooks and water and all of that stuff, but if I cannot focus. If my lips are dry, if I'm ashy, nothing else is happening. No, no. So staying hydrated and moisturized and non-ashy is my mission in life.
I love it. Non-ashy. That's so great. Final lightning round question. What is one word to describe your career journey?
Meteoric. I can't
Ooh,
believe I'm here. And at the same time, I have worked incredibly hard to be here. I will not let imposter syndrome win. But I feel like, one day I was graduating from graduate school, and then the next day I turned around and I was an executive somewhere. And I could not be more blessed. I have an incredible boss. I have
Yeah,
incredible coworkers. This, I'm so thankful that this is life, and I can't
that's
even believe it
awesome.
sometimes.
That's awesome. I love that so much. That's fantastic. So, when your episode airs, we will be approaching the celebration of Juneteenth. I believe it'll be just that week prior to
Yeah.
Juneteenth. And so, in Buffalo, that weekend, a couple days after this episode airs, in Buffalo, we will be celebrating Juneteenth. Um, and we know that there's a big attack on DEI
Hmm.
related initiatives, whether it's making Juneteenth an official holiday or how companies celebrate that. Talk a little bit about, to the moms who are listening, who are in leadership positions and have the ability to make decisions. How can folks influence DEI in the
Ooh.
workspace as we kind of
Mm.
approach Juneteenth holiday? It's a good time to ground ourselves in this work. So, what can people do to prioritize DEI?
So that's such an incredible question. I love it. One of the things that you can do to prioritize DEI, well, there are a number of things you can do. Um, First of all, if you are an executive, in an executive level or leadership position, I would encourage you to be brave and to have a brave conversation. And that term is like, is kind of hijacked a little bit. So I don't mean like, you know, don't Google brave conversation. I mean, be willing to have an intentional conversation that could challenge the leadership in your organization about incomes and outcomes. So what do I mean by incomes? I mean, what is happening in the network inside your organization? Who is coming into the organization? What do they look like? Where do they come from? Is that like me bias happening? And then the outcomes of your organization. Be willing to be accountable or to ask those who are accountable about the outcomes of who benefits from the work in that organization. If you are in any sort of position where you have the ear of someone who can listen and who can deal with those challenges, engage in a brave conversation about that.
I
Um,
love that.
I will also encourage you to look at data, back that conversation up with facts, right? And figures. Look at your turnover data, look at the outcomes for clients, look at the statistics in your organization to see who populates your organization. If there are some surveys that you could use to back up that data, really take a look at that information. If there are some articles or some reads or some videos that you can get staff to do to get educated on about the issues specific to your industry, have those conversations, right? Be willing to move that work forward in a way that is powerful. And then talk to other folks in your organization to understand that their experiences. If you are having questions or concerns about something happening in your organization, 5 other people are also having those same questions and concerns, right? So, really gathering that information in a way that is meaningful so that when you make the approach to have this conversation, you have the support of folks around you, right? And you're bringing those issues to the table in a way that you can move the needle forward.
That is fantastic. And finally, today, we want to close out with our resource of the week. You mentioned it a little bit earlier today. Tell the folks a little bit more about the resource of the week.
Yes, so City Swim Project, on the board of directors for City Swim Project. It is an organization that is committed to teaching children how to swim in underserved zip codes. So we know historically, Black children in particular were not invited into aquatic spaces. Aquatic spaces were seen as historically white. And so we are looking to, as an organization, increase the number of kids in our community who know how to swim. Drowning deaths are so preventable, and they happen so much more often in our community than they really need to. So if you are at a certain income level or below, City Swim Project is free for you. You just need to go online and fill out the application. You could Google City Swim Project Buffalo and find out more information. You can also become a coach if you know how to swim and you want to teach others how to swim. There's also a tutoring component. We're looking to expand our footprint in the community. We're specifically looking at 14208, 14219, or 209, and 14212 and 215 zip codes. Yeah, go find out more information. Get your babies to learn how to swim. It's revolutionary work.
Yeah, it is. It's an awesome program. So many gems. I'm sure people will want to continue having conversations with you. Tell us where we can find you, and the best way for folks to connect with you.
Yeah. So I am on LinkedIn. That's my one bit of I guess social media. Yvonne Dubois, LMSW MBA on LinkedIn. You can also find me at Child and Family Services on any given day. CFSBNY.org. You can also email me directly at Ydubois at cfsbny.org. I am thinking of any other ways. I think those are the two most important and primary ways. You can also find me on my organization's LinkedIn page. So I have my own consulting business, Leading with Love, on LinkedIn, and you can find me doing consulting work there as well.
Fantastic. Well, this was such a great conversation. I can't wait for the folks to hear it. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in. Please don't forget to subscribe, leave a review. You can hear us on Apple Pods, Spotify, YouTube. Leave a review, a comment, ask a question. And most importantly, don't forget to follow us on social media. Check us out on Instagram and Facebook. And you can find me on TikTok at Shay the C-Suite Mama. I will make sure I link all of this information, including Yvonne's contact information, in the show notes. Until next time, thanks for listening.